like, let's say, a fashion doll or especially a game, a board game, there are certain products where the name is almost more important than the product itself. I mean, certainly in the case of board games. If you look at most of our games, they have very catchy titles that communicate the product right away. HedBandz is a great example. I mean, one of the few things that distinguishes that game on the market is the name HedBandz, which is such a great trademark. Right. So in that case, I definitely recommend that inventors don't come and present games with names that have not been vetted through the trademark office. And even better than that, if you really believe in it, I'd recommend securing the trademark. It's much cheaper to secure a trademark than it is to get a patent.
That's right. And also, as far as the instructions, is to potentially copyright those. Yeah,
I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't recommend an inventor. It really depends on what type of inventor you'd want to be. In my experience dealing with professional toy and game inventors, that's not a crucial part. I mean, we're going to rewrite the instructions anyway. Okay. If you're, I mean, I would want to distinguish in this, just for the sake of clarification. Oftentimes, toys and games get lumped together, and they're actually quite different in many ways. Most toy inventors don't really plan on bringing their toys to market themselves. It's very rare. So their whole business is based around a licensing play. There seems to be a bit more of a blurring when it comes to game inventors, because there are some game inventors who fancy themselves, who consider themselves to be inventors, but they also plan on producing their game. In that case, they have a completely different set of legal issues to deal with, whether it be copywriting, trademarking, patents, all that jazz. I'm really just speaking from the perspective of someone who's doing something only for the purpose of licensing it to a toy company.
Okay, so would you prefer that I make a toy or game myself, start to sell it, see that it's selling well, and then present it to you, or to present it to you before I either have success or failure on my own?
It really, I mean, again, I deal with inventors first and foremost, so I'm just looking for inventions. I'm just looking for concepts that are well developed, very easy to communicate, that have a certain amount of love and attention put into them, and are developed with an eye and an understanding for the toy industry. Now, certainly our company, acquires things that have already been on the market, and as an inventor, you may very well want to take something to market. Certainly for us, if you can get something out there and prove success, that's going to help tremendously. In fact, there's a bit of a balancing act between ingenuity and success. A boring bad game can find success in the markets, and if you have a boring bad game and you're able to find success in the market, then there will be value in that game. Whereas if you just try and license a boring bad game, it's not going to have a lot of value. So certainly there are cases where, because an inventor put the extra time to take something to market and to market it and to find an audience for it and all that jazz, they were able to find something that was maybe otherwise not as distinguishable. They were able to invest, their energy into adding value to it. Okay. That's not really my job, though. My job is just to deal with inventions.
Got it. So now there's an inventor that has a relationship with you, and they know already not to worry about the intellectual property and the name and all that stuff if they don't have the money. That's one thing. The inventor that doesn't have the relationship with you, how can they protect themselves to just feeling comfortable to present to you and them not thinking that you're going to rip them off?
Well, we go on reputation. I mean, I don't think there's much worry with us. We're very broadly known in the toy industry to be very pro-inventor, very driven by the inventor community. I've been doing this for 13 years and haven't had a single issue, a single lawsuit, a single complaint. We really believe in the principle of partnering with outside inventors to license product. So we're only as good as our name is, and most people who come to know us feel pretty comfortable with us. I mean, obviously we have non-disclosure agreements, and there are certainly issues with seeing thousands of ideas a year. There's certainly issues of conflicts and similar inventions being shown, or maybe someone shows us something that's similar to something inside. In our case, when it comes to, I fully appreciate that, you invest your time, effort, and energy in something that's your baby, and you don't want to see someone steal it. I really haven't heard that many instances of people stealing ideas in the toy industry. And the truth is, it's oftentimes in the cases where I have heard of people who felt their ideas were stolen, they really hadn't invested or developed them to the point where they really had something specific that was ownable. And in other words, you say, I have a sort of unspecific idea for a doll, and then 4 years later, a similar doll comes out from a toy industry, from a toy company. I really don't believe that those toy companies were at least not deliberately taking an idea from someone. Mm-hmm. So obviously, I would say there's two or three things I'd recommend to inventors. First of all is try and know the companies you're dealing with and learn their reputations. And I can certainly say that there are companies in the toy industry with wonderful reputations who have fostered the inventor community, and there are companies that don't have such great reputations. Two is definitely protect yourself with a non-disclosure agreement. That's just a no-brainer. I wouldn't kill yourself over it. It's you're probably not going to sue someone anyway if you do run into a difficult situation. But nonetheless, it's good to have a solid non-disclosure agreement protecting your idea. Okay. More importantly, though, is try and have as much value in your concept as possible, because no one, oftentimes I've heard again situations where people feel that they've been stolen, and ideas been stolen, and oftentimes it's because someone comes to someone with just that, an idea, not really an invention, not really something proprietary or ownable, not something worked out. And that's where you get into a danger zone. Because if you come to someone and you say, I got a great idea for a toy, it's so-and-so. And they look at it and they go, yeah, but you haven't really invented anything here. You just kind of have an idea for a toy, but there's no, where's the mechanism? Where's the so-and-so? Where's the this, that, and the other? Right. Then you get into situations where they, 2 weeks later, they go, God, that really was a good idea that guy had. Maybe we should, put some people, invest some money into trying to figure out that idea. In other words, ideas are very hard to own. Ideas are very hard to protect. Inventions, on the other hand, something specific, something on the table, something you can point to. Something you can say, my thing was 6 inches, tall, and it had a mechanism with 3 gears and this, that, and the other, and I showed you this thing. That's much easier to protect. And truthfully, that's much harder to steal because no one would want to steal. Because if someone comes into you and you have something that's fairly worked out, you've given them a huge opportunity. You've given them a huge leg up. So that, I think, is one of the most important things. And it's not to devalue ideas, and it's certainly not to, to say that just because you don't have every T crossed and every I dotted that there isn't value there. But in an industry like this, if you're dealing with someone who you're a little bit nervous about, it certainly helps you to have something truly of value.
Very, very... That's great information, Ben. Really appreciate that. Now, on the other side, which is a little bit concerning in a way, but hopefully you can clear this up for us. There's a couple questions. Again, if you want to continue sending emails, you're more than welcome to brian@gotinvention.com. You mentioned that a shelf life of a game could potentially be 1 to 2 years. Now, let's say you find this magic idea, and you decide to go ahead and move forward with a potential licensing deal with an inventor. What is the expectation? What could they expect, Ben, from Spin Master?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me say, that's just working on averages. Obviously, we're all hoping for evergreens. We're all hoping to get the next Game of Life, which has been around for 51 years. We're certainly trying to find stuff that lasts more than 1 year. I'm just playing on averages. Okay. And when we run a business scenario for a toy, typically you don't really you try and recoup your investment within the first year. In terms of a licensing agreement, the toy industry is just wonderful when it comes to dealing with inventors. And I would say that I believe it's the most oriented industry towards inventors out there. I know there's lots of other industries that work with inventors, but the toy industry, it's a permanent, well-established relationship. Much as in Hollywood, there were screenwriters, and every studio knows if you want a great script, you hire the best screenwriters. The toy industry is the same way with inventors. There's a stable of professional inventors who do this day in, day out. So the business relationships are actually they're already defined, and it's very straight. They're just sort of a generally agreed upon set of principles when working with inventors, and that is, first of all, that typically, not every case, but normally, an inventor will receive a 5% royalty on net proceeds. That amounts to anywhere between 15 and 25% of the profit. It really depends on the product and the margins and such, but in and around that much. An inventor can expect, if a company is looking to exclusively evaluate the product, they can expect an option agreement within, the first couple of months of evaluation at least. It really varies, again, and it depends on how much demand there is for your product. Mm-hmm. An inventor can expect a licensing agreement with an advance attached to it. So, an advanced sum of money that will later be recouped from the revenue stream. It varies on what the amount would be. Typically in the toy industry, you're looking from anywhere between really $5,000 and $150,000, and it's certainly cases of it being higher than that. But those are generally what an inventor can expect, and those are not controversial terms, at least, and they're almost expected when you go in to make a deal. There's certainly cases where the royalty rate will fluctuate depending on what other partners are involved. Let's say in order to do your product, we may have to license other third-party technology, or if it's a product that is associated with Disney and we have to pay them the royalty, then the royalty rate would be a little bit lower. But again, these are generally accepted principles that really don't even require much negotiation.
Okay, and it makes a difference on the advances and so forth, depending on what sort of intellectual property you have, or the extent of how far you've actually developed the idea?
Yes and no. I mean, it's hard to say what makes an advance. The real truth is, obviously someone wants to pay in advance that helps to compensate the inventor for their investment. So if someone comes in with a fully functional, developed prototype remote control car versus an idea on a napkin, typically speaking, you're going to probably offer them a greater advance. The real truth of it is it is a market. And what's going to drive the size of your advance is how many other people also want your product. That's just me. People don't often say that, but that's probably the cold, hard truth of it. That if you have 10 companies lined up, every one of them clamoring for it, someone's going to offer you a considerably larger advance than if they know that a product can only be sold to them. So let's say you do have that line extension to HedBandz, and I know that no one else out there could possibly license it because we're the ones who own HedBandz. That's going to somewhat affect the advance you get paid. Now, that said, again, the toy world is actually very nice when they deal with inventors, and that opportunity, truthfully, the toy company could probably take advantage of the inventor and maybe even try and license it without paying them in advance. But typically speaking, most people understand that it's a give and take in a long-term relationship. So even in that case, you could expect a fair advance of, again, probably not $150,000, but something, something that makes you feel pretty good about investing the time.
Boy, that's very, very nice terms, and it sounds like it's really a very nice experience to work with somebody like you, because you truly understand, and it sounds like you have a real open door to inventors, so we really appreciate that.
Well, that's a big part of our life. I mean, pretty much everything that we've ever done that has built this company has been through partnership with another company, with another inventor or another company. We're happy to pay royalties, because when we're paying royalties, it means our products are selling.
Right.
It means it means money's coming in.
That's fantastic. So Ben, you took a part in the Toy and Game Invention Camp with Julie. And Julie, you're still there, right? I know you've been patiently listening.
I'm still here.
So tell us about that experience, Ben. I mean, there's young inventors that are going to this camp inventing products, and Julie's taking this responsibility of putting this kind of event together for kids and innovation. What's your take on that?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, it's just awesome. First of all, shout out to Julie, who did an amazing job with this thing. Not just in organizing it, but also even in persuading me, to participate in it. It was really her enthusiasm that made the whole thing seem so exciting. The thing is just great. I mean, for a company that works with children day in, day out, and also works with inventors day in, day out, it was just a natural fit. And, I remember when I was a kid going to, arts and crafts camp or summer camp or what have you, the idea to have a real camp where kids can come in and get an insight into how the toys are made, the toys that they play with are made, and have exposure, to this group Maker Kids, the idea of a camp where kids can actually step into a Maker lab and see a 3D printer and see, computer automated draft. It's super cool. I thought it was really, really neat.
And what was your review like going through the kids' inventions that came out from the camp?
Oh, it's great. I mean, like, just the one awesome thing is just the sheer unbridled creativity. Not having to worry about market constraints, not worrying about anything else. Just seeing kids' imaginations run wild is the coolest thing in the world. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily look through this with the eye of, is there a product that's been mastered to get a license from? Because I don't think that's what it's really about. I mean, in the same way that if you had kids at photography camp, you're not going to expect them to sell their pictures to Time magazine. I wouldn't put that much pressure on the kids. It's really just about watching kids explore their creativity, learn about the industry. Maybe most kids, I think, probably don't even know toy invention exists as a profession. So the idea that a couple of these kids might get the bug and want to go into it was enough of a reason for us.
Very nice.